Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the In the Oven Show. I'm here today in Calgary talking to Dan Salt. He's going to tell me all about his background and career and kind of a bit about his company and some tips and tricks. He's actually an insurance broker, works for Jones and Salt Insurance, which is his company as well. And so we're going to talk through a few things about insurance and really just talk about myths and really delve into some of that stuff. So hi Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey Dan, happy to be here.
It's always interesting talking to someone with the exact same name as me. It's like
fellow Dan, yeah.
kind of like interviewing myself in a kind of weird way. But maybe just briefly tell us a little bit about where, you're in Calgary, and are you born and bred here? Like what's your kind of initial background?
Yeah, pretty much. I was born on the island, moved here when I was 5. So as long as I can remember, I've been in Calgary. It's been my home. And like we were chatting about before, I love it here. I think Calgary is maybe the best city in the world. So it's cool to be a part of that in a very integral way in the city.
Okay, and what, in terms of, before we delve into more of the career aspects of things, what keeps you occupied outside of work? What your kind of hobbies, interests, and a bit more of your personality, I guess?
So longtime family man. I love the sports here too. So I played rugby out of high school. There's a great rugby scene here in Calgary. After that, I've replaced it with mountain biking, jiu-jitsu now, and firearms I like too. So it's kind of a nice mix of all the hobbies. It keeps me healthy, keeps me engaged. It's exciting. So those 3 things keep me super busy. And then, I've got a lovely dog and girlfriend at home, and we like to go camping like we were chatting about. There's so much to do. I
find that's kind of a natural thing for most people that live in Calgary. What you described is kind of activity-based, and firearms is interesting. Is that like going down to the shooting range and that sort of thing?
A little bit, but again, being in Calgary, we just go out to the bush. There's lots of crown land around here. Okay. So it's kind of a precursor. I would like to get into hunting eventually.
Yeah.
So right now it's just about building the outdoorsman skills, building your accuracy, and it's just fun in the meantime, right? So I kind of say that's my version of golf.
Yeah.
It's that quiet, meditative, somewhat repetitive concentration sport, I'll say. Yeah. So I really enjoy it for those aspects. And then, plus stuff goes bang and it's exciting. Yeah.
Oh, good. I've done the more of the clay pigeon shooting. I don't know if you call it, the target.
Trap shooting, super fun.
With the shotguns and stuff like that. And so I always had a good time doing that. My brother took me a few years ago doing that. And, you've always figure out how to hold the gun correctly, because if you don't, you screw your shoulder up and you start to come away with bruises in this location and stuff.
Totally, yeah.
But I always found the clays that kind of run across the ground, they called it the rabbit, and it kind of they spinned it and it just bounced along the floor, and I found it really hard to shoot because it was normally closer and you had less lag time when you fling a disc in the air, it kind of floats and comes down and you can kind of shoot it. But
totally, yeah, those are really fun. I don't have that set up, unfortunately, but there's a couple ranges outside the city.
Yeah,
you get that action. Yeah, that's really cool.
So what inspired you to get into insurance? I mean, from the outset, I guess insurance might not seem the most exciting of careers, but also could be very exciting because you get to meet a lot of different businesses and discuss things. So what initially piqued your interest and how did you get into it?
Cool, yeah, it's a bit of a unique story. The ongoing joke is in insurance is nobody chooses it. That's incorrect for me. I did actually choose it, and it's a family legacy, actually. So I'm a 3rd generation insurance broker. My granddad had one of the first insurance brokerages in Prince George, BC. He got my dad into it, and this is the family business. So I've been working here since I was 16. I got my car. I was the janitor, working here in the summer times as the receptionist. And when it came time to kind of choose my big kid job, I really liked the lifestyle that insurance offered. I obviously had the opportunity of the business, and I liked the path going forward. Insurance is really cool. You get to talk to a wide range of people. So everybody needs insurance all across the province. So you speak with everybody, all different walks of life, and I found that fascinating. It's really cool. And the same on the business side too. You get interacted with so many different businesses that you may not even know existed until they call you for an insurance policy, and then you do a deep dive into them. So it's kind of cool. I kind of get to see a little bit of so many different things, and that keeps things interesting, and it's kept me going in the industry for 14 years now.
Wow, 14 years. So what aspects, you alluded to a few there, but what do you think you enjoy the most out of insurance now you're fully into it?
I think if you do it right, and you do it in a responsible, professional, and friendly way, you can really make a difference in people's lives. Insurance isn't the most exciting thing, but it is something that everybody needs to do one way or another in their life. So it's rewarding to provide that service, make it Like I said, prompt, professional, valuable to our clients, and if you can do it in a friendly way and get a laugh at the end of the day, I find it really rewarding. It does feel like a service job. Yeah, and I like it for that. And if you do it right, it's meaningful to people.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that you don't know you need until you've been through something that you needed it for.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, it's kind of like sometimes going to the dentist. They're like, oh, I got to call my insurance broker. But the way we run the business, we just try and make that as painless as possible. And when you achieve it, I think it's really cool. We're not saving lives or restarting hearts here, but just being a tiny difference in people's days here and there, it is rewarding.
So how did Jones and Salt get going? What's the history of the company and what's it generally about?
Going way back, my dad worked on the company side, so he worked for insurance companies. Part of his job was interacting with a lot of local brokerages. And in that journey, he learned what works in a brokerage, what doesn't work, the good, the bad, the ugly. He saw that. So he bought into Jones & Salt 25 years ago. It was a very small company at that time, and then he basically applied what he learned on the company things to the brokerage, and he's grown it since then. So he's been out of the business for a while now, but we've basically kept the torch going. We've kept the foundation the same and continued on that path.
We're talking a bit about the name and the brand. When you think of like a recent success story with insurance, because to me, when I think insurance, like I've never really had any drastic things I've had to use insurance for, but except for when my house was damaged by hail not too long ago. But like that was the first instance where I was like, insurance is good. But do you think of a time where you had a really strong success from you personally, either recommending some kind of insurance?
Yeah, we have some cool moments. So we like to share our wins in the brokerage. So I can't take personal credit for myself, but one of my staff came up with this solution. And we had a client who, they've got a seasonal property in another town, and their rates were just going crazy. And it's because this property is vacant, and they don't know what to do with it. It was up for sale. And one of the solutions that my staff came up with, they said, well, if you're open to it, if you spent one night a month even in this location, then it wouldn't be vacant. We could rate it as a seasonal property. And this client said, sure, I'd love to. I'd love a reason to go out to my cabin and spend the night there. And it ended up saving them almost thousands of dollars in their insurance.
Wow.
So it was kind of a little bit of outside the box solution to this client. I don't like to ask my clients to change their lifestyle to match insurance. I like to do it the other way around. But in this case, I thought it was really cool. And the client was so stoked, right? They got an excuse to go out to their cabin. Their premiums dropped by thousands of dollars. So that was just kind of a fun example of when you do it right, if you put that extra care in, it does make a difference for people's lives, like we were saying.
Yeah, rather than be like, tell me what your details are and here's the number.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get these moments probably weekly, I'd say. Yeah.
It's nice when you can do something because, like you say, sometimes it's just situational and there's nothing that can be done. But it's kind of nice where you can be that catalyst for changing that, especially for thousands of dollars. That's phenomenal, really.
Yeah, and even on the most generic policies and things, there's always usually just a little something. We have a lot of like little dials and knobs that we can play with, and usually just find something to improve on, right?
And those kind of things get the team kind of fired up when that sort of happens.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I know those are nice moments, and we like to recognize that because it's not a daily thing. There's a lot of anguish in insurance too. I mean, the industry plays a good role, but you're also dealing with people who are going through tough times in their lives, right? Like you said, hail in the house is never exciting. It's not a fun phone call to make. So when it goes the other way, we like to celebrate that.
So one thing I like to do in the show is kind of debunk a few myths around industries, the people I'm talking to. You must have a few, I think, in insurance, just around people's perception and how things should go and how they go from your perspective. Do you have anything that comes to mind that's like a handful of things that you constantly repeat to people that's like, no, that's not actually the case? Or is there anything that you never really get a chance to say that's a myth?
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, I don't want to come across as a shill here for the insurance industry, but I'll say one, people sometimes think, they're these gigantic financial global corps. There's a little bit of that going on, but a lot of the companies do have local offices. They're Canadian-based. A lot of the companies I work with have their main offices right in Calgary. So they're local businesses, they're employing local people, and they're not making money hand over fist. A lot of the reason why premiums are going up and people feel they're charged so much, it's actually due to cost of repair even. So you could go to the auto industry and say, why does this mirror cost $10,000 to replace when 10 years ago it cost $400? So there's a lot of that going on. I think the insurance companies get a bad rap sometimes, again, for that reason. There's a lot of money going to and from them, but I think they also play a really important role in society. So when there's disasters like fires, we just had these Jasper fires, they're horrific. And I know the community mourns for our losses in Jasper and things like that, but I also feel like there's this subconscious level that we all kind of know it's going to be okay. Somebody's going to take care of that. The people aren't actually starving. And that's actually the insurance industry. It's not so much the government, it really is the insurance industry that will be rebuilding the town of Jasper, that is homing and housing a lot of the people who are out of their homes right now. So I think that could be recognized more. I would like to give the insurance company, credit where credit is due, and they really are first responders. They've got teams up there before the embers even settled. There's a lot of insurance companies on site helping the people who needed it there.
Like coming from the UK originally, I remember when I had my first collision with my vehicle when I just started driving, and it was a stupid thing that I did. But basically, my premium went up ridiculously after that point, and I think after that initial oh my god, it kind of scared me a little bit to claim or to think about stuff like that. And really, my first instance is just going back when I came to Calgary and we had that hail incident that I talked about, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna pump the premium up and all this sort of stuff. And then we got our renewal the next year and it went up like $10, and I was like, wow, this is surprising. And it just shows that they are there to help, and it was an interesting perspective. And do you have an explanation as to why that sort of thing might occur? I just assumed it would go up a lot. I mean, it might be circumstantial to the company or whatever, but is there a general thing that because of hail and the nature of hail that there was a difference there?
That's a really good question. The answer for most of the whys in insurance is always just big data. In the case of hail, the insurance company recognize that it's not your fault and it's not something you failed at as a homeowner that caused your house to be hailed on. So they don't necessarily penalize you. In the auto industry, they do apply fault, for better or for worse, and it's not always accurate, but there is this aspect that they will put the fault on one person.
Of course,
and then say, you are more likely than the person next to you to have an accident, so we're going to charge you more premium. And they're trying to predict what you'll cost them in the next few years.
Of course,
So, things that are out of hand, even if your vehicle gets stolen, that's not necessarily your fault. It just happens. That won't increase your rates. Where that would break down is if you're getting repeated hail year after year, summer after summer, which is what we're seeing right now, then the insurance companies have to say, okay, we didn't anticipate this much natural disaster. Rates will have to go up. But they would never target a single person. It would just kind of be your whole neighborhood would see a bump. And that feels crummy too. I mean, if you've never made a claim and you've never used your insurance and then you've seen the rates go up, that can be a really tough pill to swallow. But again, it's just the potential for damage is rising, and we all have to put into the pot that all these hail claims are being paid out of. So the beast continues that way.
No, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but when you say it like that, it makes perfect sense. So when we're thinking about myths and things like that, one thing that makes me think of is if you've had a company, generally business related now, do you have a business owner that kind of made a blunder when it came to insurance and they could have easily avoided the situation?
That's a really good question. I think not necessarily a blunder because, people don't know, but a big thing I see for business owners is maybe negligence on their insurance. So if they're being a little too passive with it, I've reviewed policies that were set up 10 years ago and it just doesn't match what the business has grown into. So you'll see sometimes too much coverage, too little coverage, which means you're either overpaying or you're underinsured. So those can be areas for business owners to look at. I recommend getting your insurance reviewed every year. For all our commercial clients, that's what we do. If it's been even a couple years, I would take it in. Other blunders, when it comes to claims, there's a little bit of strategy to claims. I've had people, I had one client, it was an auto claim and they claimed damage for like $400. And I just said, it was rated at fault and they ended up paying thousands over the last couple of years. And I just thought, they weren't one of my clients at the time, but I thought if you would have called me with that claim, I would have never let you do it. So we can definitely offer some advice for claims when it's worth your while, what the process is going to be like, what the cost of making a claim could be like too. There's a little bit of strategy there. Otherwise, it's just about having the most accurate policy you can.
I guess they don't think about it. Do they think I'm kind of set and covered?
Yeah, and it's easy to forget about. Like I said, it's like going to the dentist, and you probably know people who haven't been to the dentist for 5 years. So they say, well, my insurance is renewing. I don't want to, shake the boat or anything, but you're always leaving something on the table if you're doing that. It's worth having it dialed in by a broker year by year.
So I want to flip a little bit more to talking a bit about, business management, team management, client management, rather than insurance in particular. And I guess sometimes it might be the case that you've been involved with a claim that's been denied, or, a client's been in a tough spot for some reason because of it. I'm just intrigued if this had kind of happened, and if it has, what did you kind of learn and how did you handle that situation?
Yeah, a huge thing about what we do as a brokerage is claims advocacy.
Yeah.
So the companies I work with, I will admit, are excellent. They have really good claim service, but sometimes it doesn't go the way of our client, right? Sometimes claims are denied or coverages aren't paid out properly. And if there's ever a dispute there, I get involved as neutrally as I can. And I really kind of start playing lawyer at that point, right? You're going through the wordings of the insurance policy, which for an auto policy, it's 45 pages. So you'll go through, you'll pick up certain things going on, and work with both your client on their expectations and also the insurance company to make sure they're upholding their part of the contract too. So it doesn't happen often, but we're always there to get involved if, there's a dispute with coverage, payouts. The biggest one is timeliness, I find, especially we just had a huge hailstorm here in Calgary. It's going to be a long time for the trades and the insurance companies to get to every house.
Yeah.
So we will end up helping a lot with that management of getting the adjusters out, coordinating with our clients and the insurance companies to make sure that things are just moving along as they should be.
No, it's tricky, especially because I imagine in that situation you can deal with someone that's not thinking too logically and it's quite an emotional.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Like I said, we're speaking with people at maybe the worst time in their life ever, right? Especially if it's something with your house, with your business. These are horrible times, and we recognize that. So we work on that as a brokerage too, how we handle these conflicts. And sometimes you're talking to somebody who's just in a car accident at the side of the road and they call you first. So we're really gentle with those, and we're prepared to help people with whatever they need, even if it's just a friendly voice for those first couple minutes, and then proceeding with the insurance claim.
So how does it feel being in that position?
It's a big responsibility, I'll say. You're dealing with tough events, and also with insurance, it's people's biggest investments, right? It's their homes, their cars, their businesses. These are the most important things as far as stuff goes for a lot of people. So it's really important that we're doing our jobs properly and making sure that the insurance companies are upholding their end of the deal as well, because these things are important. They're big moments and they're big things, and it's important to us that people get the protection that they're paying for.
And when you talk about protection and types of protection, do you find that there's some types of insurance that businesses might get that they don't really need, or they might waste money on? Are there certain types that you've seen people maybe direct you to get a certain type of insurance and it's been the wrong decision, or you inherit a policy from somewhere else and go, this isn't really what you should be doing?
I think that happens all the time. The biggest one is coverage limits. Like I said, if you have the same insurance policy that you had 5 years ago, but your business is growing, it's not going to cover you anymore. And there's actually penalties involved too if you're underinsuring yourself. So sometimes you see a policy and you almost have a heart attack. You're like, I hope this is just an absolute skeleton for what you need. If the businesses have changed what they're doing, right? If they've added new services on and not added to their insurance policy, those new services won't be covered either. And those are big exposures. As far as individual coverages go, everybody has different levels of comfortability, what they'd want on an insurance policy. And I will admit there's not a lot of superfluous coverage. I think you really do get what you pay for at a policy, and then it's about determining what your level of protection and coverage is that you want, and that's kind of the conversation that we have as a broker with our clients.
So I'd love to know about a particularly unique situation with a client, whether it's a business owner or personal, where it was a particularly unique insurance scenario or whatever. Do you have any cool, interesting, fun stories of people that you've met and been like, wow, what the hell?
There's some cool businesses along the way. One of my clients, they manufacture bars that go on the prison doors.
Okay.
That one's kind of cool. So you see interesting businesses like that. Something that was kind of fun, and one of the things that keeps me going in my job, I insured a new hot sauce business. So they're manufacturing hot sauces, and I had the insurance companies I was working with come back and say, we need a Scoville report to determine how hot these things are. I go back to my client, they're just starting out, and they said, these cost thousands of dollars. There's no way I can get one of these reports.
Really?
So I took it upon myself to research the ingredients that my client was using, compare it with similar hot sauces, compare Scoville reports to the actual peppers and things they were using.
Okay.
And I sent my best guess to the insurance company. I said, basically, like, here's what I've researched, here's what I've found, these are my guesses for their products. And my underwriters loved it. They said, this is great, this works. You know, we don't need that report after all. They offered an excellent quote and a very fair price for my client. And, you know, they were really happy that they ended up with a good insurance policy. They didn't have to pay for this expensive test. And my underwriters felt confident that they knew what they were insuring. So that made me feel really good about being able to help both parties that I'm involved with. And it was cool. Now I know all about hot sauce and Scoville ratings as well. So that was a really fun.
So what's the risk with the Scoville ratings from an insurance perspective for a business? Is it the obvious, like, health problems? And
I think so. Yeah. So insurance companies, they're just trying to figure out what's the worst case scenario. And when it comes to hot sauce, I think they were worried about people unknowingly having something that's way too hot for them. So they're also concerned about the labeling, and they wanted to make sure that the hottest hot sauces, you know, it looked like they were going to be crazy. And this client's really cool. Their branding is really aggressive. Like, you know, it's like their names are stuff like, this is Demon Fire. So I was showing them the bottles, and I said, no chance this will be mixed up, right? So I think that was their main concern. And once they saw that, they're like, yeah, you know, the Scoville ratings, they're not absurd, they're not violent, and the packaging is appropriate. They thought, yeah, there's not a massive risk here, so we're willing to jump on it.
And so in a similar vein of thought, what is the most ridiculous personal item you've had to get on an insurance policy?
Personal items, you get some crazy collections. You know, you'll be working with somebody very unassuming, and then they'll say, by the way, I've got $20,000 of comic books in the basement. Should I tell you about that? Like, yeah, I think we should look into that too. Or, you know, card collections, things like that. You know, we were talking about firearms earlier. You have somebody reveal they've got quite the collection there sometimes, every once in a while. Yeah, cool knickknacks, family artifacts come up. It's kind of cool.
There must be some frustrations there's in the industry, and I just wanted to poke your brain about things that could be done better or change in the industry for the betterment of whoever, yourself or...
I think the insurance industry is in a really tough place right now. Like I said, the cost of repairs, both to homes, businesses, buildings, it's rising. We're seeing inflation right now. And insurance companies actually take the brunt of that. You know, they're working with one-to-one tradespeople. They're buying raw materials from companies. So they're seeing these costs go up right away. I think a lot needs to be done in the industry to control these costs, whether it's policy, trade, regulation, I think is a big one too. Stuff is just being made too cheap sometimes. So if you're trying to build houses as quickly as you can, you're doing minimum specs on them, and then they burn down. The insurance company then fixes that. So there's that too. I think auto manufacturers are out of control. So again, it's not necessarily something within insurance, but you know, I'll tell my clients who are asking, why do auto rates go up so much? And this is a big thing politically. You see the government getting involved in the auto industry as well, which I don't really like to see. But something needs to be done. And an example I'll use is 15 years ago, if you bumped into somebody at the grocery store, you know, you spit on the bumper, you buff it out, you can both go your separate ways. But now vehicles will have GPS, cameras, sensors, and everything. So that same ding, all of a sudden, is costing $40,000. And the insurance companies aren't prepared for that. And that's coming out of their pocket. There was a famous example last year where a BMW was sideswiped and the mirror fell off. There's no other damage to the car. The mirror just flipped off. And it was determined a total loss because there's no way to replace the mirror specifically. The whole car had to be replaced.
Really?
Yeah, but just because cars are basically like driving iPads.
It's all the gadgets and stuff connected to it.
So that's being taken on the brunt of the insurance, and then as a result, we're all paying for that, right? We're all putting into this pot. So I think to make big sweeping changes and to solve these problems, you need to look at things holistically. It's unfair just to point your finger at an insurance company and say, that's enough money for you guys, because they're public companies, you can see how much profit they are or are not making. And a lot of it is just going back out to these kinds of repairs that could be more preventable.
And a lot of these service-based companies don't have the hugest of margins. Like, they're not...
That's true too. It's not the auto body shops gouging you. It's not the insurance companies that are gouging you. It's just kind of the way it has to be right now. But when it comes to solutions, I think everybody kind of needs to come sit at the table together and think of a smarter way that we can be fixing all the vehicles on the roads right now.
So in your world, how do you find it's best to get a feel for the market for insurance? Do you get a lot of that from the insurance companies you work with, or is it peers in the industry? Like, how well connected is the Calgary market?
It's a very small industry, actually. Yeah. I can speak very highly of the broker channel. Not everybody has to go through a broker to get insurance, but I would highly recommend it. There's a lot of advantages there. And the broker community in Alberta is really strong. So I actually sat on, there's a broker for, or a board for young brokers called the PYIB. And then there's an association for all the other brokers at large. I've sat on both those boards. And I can speak really highly to the people who are involved in them, and also confirm that we as brokers are here to serve our community. And we're a middleman between the insurance companies who are doing their best, but can definitely sometimes fall out of touch here and there. So I've got a lot of good things to say for the broker community. The insurers, our partners, they are engaged with us. There's good people working for them. They hire local, like we said, but they're doing a lot, right? So sometimes, it's good to have these bigger associations and a broker voice to speak with the insurance companies and bring them down to earth sometimes.
And so you mentioned younger people coming into the field. If you were talking to someone that was interested, how would you kind of warn them / recommend them about the industry?
Warn them. I would recommend joining because there's so much opportunity right now. The insurance industry in all capacities, not just the broker channel, has been screaming for young people to come in and start learning the industry, right? It's not easy. There's definitely barriers to entry. There's some accreditation. There's education to be had. There's experience that's really important. I would say young people get involved. There's so much opportunity out there for all kinds of different careers. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5 at an office. You can be in the field. You can be working with people. You can be working in teams. It's really cool. As far as warnings, you'll never get out. That's what I'll say. Once you're in the insurance, it'll get you. It's hard to leave once you're in. So that's about it. Yeah.
It's interesting you describe an element being in the field. What would that be like?
Yeah, you could be an insurance adjuster. That's a hard job. Again, you're dealing with people at difficult times, but it's also cool. You can get out. You've got a drone. You could fly a drone up there, check the roof. You're inspecting damages. You could be reviewing losses. So you see some crazy stuff. Being a broker, there's lots of opportunities to get out in the field as well. I'd say it's a lot of what we do can be done on the phone, over email, but it's really cool when I get to go inspect somebody's house or especially businesses to see how things operate and to make sure that the insurance is matching too. So again, that's really cool to go on site and mix things up a little bit.
And so do you work with businesses mainly with a certain point of contact, or do you deal with the C-suite? Like where do you generally fit in?
Yeah, point of contact would be the decision maker. So it's usually the owner, the manager. For larger companies, sometimes they'll have like a CFO that can sign off on these things. But it's kind of cool. When I work with companies and businesses, it feels like I'm part of their team. It almost feels like I'm on their staff. I'm sitting on their board for just pieces of their day. And I actually really like that. So it's cool to contribute, to be involved, to protect their business that people put so much pride and joy into. So it's really fun to see what gets people going, to see the pride that business owners have, and then to be a part of that and protect it. I think it's really cool.
No, I find that interesting. Similar for me. Like you get to go in and join them with marketing departments or business owners and help them kind of tell their story and things like that. So it's kind of similarities, I guess.
Big time. Yeah. A lot of what I do, especially that first introduction, is basically an interview. Right? How did you get into this? How long have you been in operation? Tell me what you do. And I love that. Like I'll go off script a lot sometimes too. My curiosity gets the best of me and we're just chatting, and that's half the fun.
That's good. I bet that's good from a business development angle as well. You've got that skill set because it makes that person feel like he's welcomed you and makes you be trusted, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it doesn't have to be all nuts and bolts. It can be just kind of a nice conversation, and you meander to what you have to and get a good feel for the whole business as a whole.
Let's talk a bit about approach to insurance a little bit. So you've got a client that's hesitant to get a certain kind of insurance, and they're not willing to invest in the right type of insurance, coverage, whatever, despite the clear risks that are involved. Have you had that situation, and how was that handled?
Yeah, you get it all the time.
Okay.
It's about when there's objections for, I don't want this, I don't need this, I don't want to pay for this. I try to avoid the fear-based approach of saying, what would happen if you didn't have this, right? But rather to try and show the value and try and paint a picture, if this were to happen, what would those next couple of days look like? Could you see this happening ever, right? So you can help business owners evaluate their own risk and then make an educated decision on how much they want to, protect that themselves. And there's a lot of options, especially in the commercial space, talking business to business. There's a lot of customization you can do. So my job is to present all the options and then help my client make an educated choice. And if they want to go bare bones, high deductibles, disaster policy only, I'll call it, that's fair. And other people like to have every bell and whistle on their low deductibles and just know if the slightest thing happens, the insurance company can jump in and help them. So it's mostly education. I'll never say, you should have this coverage and you're crazy for not having it. I won't ever go that far, but I'll just kind of present things as logically as I can.
And how long does that process tend to take with someone that's a bit more hesitant? Can it be like a few months that you have to talk about these things, or?
Oh gosh, no, hopefully not. Hopefully it can be, one or two conversations.
Okay.
First conversation is usually learning all about the business. And then I'll go back to my underwriters, I'll research that industry a little bit more. And then the second time we talk, I'll know my stuff, I'll have a bunch of options presented. And usually we can dial down a policy at that point right there. And then you're just revisiting it year after year.
Which is some of the new kind of industries that are coming on board? Because I know Calgary's traditionally been oil and gas, maybe construction, but there's more industries coming in, especially like filmmaking, media, tech.
Yeah.
Are you seeing some of that trend in Calgary?
Definitely, yeah. There's a lot of companies that exist almost purely online, social media companies, of course, and then sometimes people think, well, I don't have an office, I don't need an insurance policy, but once you're operating with other people, there's always an opportunity to cause damage. Even, it's kind of funny, people are getting sued for mental anguish these days. So if you say the wrong thing, if you have the wrong tone with somebody, you could be sued. And one thing I'll tell all business owners out there, you can operate your business perfectly, you can have no risk out there yourself, but somebody might be having a bad day and they can sue you. And there's a cost to the business owner to defend themselves, and an insurance policy will actually cover that. So even if, we could walk away from this interview and I say, you know what, I didn't like that after all, and I send somebody after you, the insurance company would deflect that. So I tell people that even run a really tight shop or a really responsible business, there's still exposure out there.
There's that subjectivity that...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it could just be a disgruntled employee trying to get back at you. I've seen it all. It does happen. As far as new industry goes, crypto's been crazy, actually. I have a couple companies installing miners for people and running their own miners. And that's tough because insurance companies don't like anything they don't know and they don't have 50 years of data on. So the new industries are always tough to find homes for, but we can do it all. We always find something.
And you find for that stuff the premiums are a little bit higher typically because of that?
Usually, yeah. If there's not a lot of data for the insurance companies to work on, they'll protect themselves by gathering more premium, right? So uncertainty is always really tough to sell to the insurance companies, and they'll just collect more money as a result.
So when you're doing that process, I guess it makes me think of where you might have been involved with a client's claim and it's against a major insurer or something, and you're having to advocate for the client where the insurer's kind of not really doing what you think they should be doing. Do you have any instances of where that's happened and what that was like?
Couple times, yeah. Luckily, things don't escalate too far. Like I said, I really trust my insurance companies, but I actually had it happen to me, believe it or not. So
really? Okay.
Yeah, I had water damage in my old condo. The whole ceiling fell down, basically. It was pretty epic water damage. Jesus. And so I was out of there. I lived with a family member for a number of months. And then when the claim was being finally wrapped up and it was time to move back in, there was supposed to be compensation for me being out of my place. It's called additional living expense. Insurance companies will put you up in a hotel. Because I was living with a family member, it was reduced. They'll say, but there's still, it's in the contract, you get a per diem. Just to be out of your home. And then the insurance company said, well, no, you should have been living in the condo the whole time. And we went back and forth. And then I actually ended up escalating this all the way to an ombudsman, which is a government employee that acts as an indifferent third party between the insurance company and clients. So I've gone to the ombudsman for clients of mine. This was a little bit different because I was representing myself, but I went there and I basically just said, here's photos of my condo, here's how it was during the construction, there's no chance I could have lived here. This was uninhabitable, right? Like there's open ceilings, there's dust everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just said, I would have got sick. There's no way I could have lived there. And the ombudsman said, oh, of course not. And forced my insurance company to pay this additional living expense.
Oh, that's good.
So I've only had to do that a handful of times with clients, but it was cool to do it myself, to kind of live that experience and be like, man, this is really what people go through. And it's never easy going through an insurance claim.
If you were choosing to scam the system, you would have not just gone and lived with friends or something. You would have...
Yeah, put me up in a fancy hotel.
And claim
and
loads
all
of money
that.
back or whatever. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, and so that is maybe one place where the insurance companies, they can be a little jaded. Insurance fraud does exist, and they do have to protect themselves in that case.
Yeah.
But sometimes they kind of forget that we're all people here. We're all just trying to get through the day, and I'll always jump in and advocate, be that calming voice, you know, talk to both parties. Usually it doesn't go as far as it did with me, but it was cool to have that experience. And it was nice to know that, you know, the system was a success. It worked how it was supposed to in that case.
Do you find that some of those issues come from, do you think it's naivety in the insurance company people? Like, why do you think in that particular instance, was it just they just had red flags? Because maybe, I don't know, would they not know your occupation and know that you're a broker and be like...
Maybe. Well, I think probably if I was working for an insurance company, they would hate to see a broker have a claim because they're like, there's going to be a know-it-all now for them. And maybe I was a little bit, but I think insurance companies do struggle. Like I said, fraud exists and they have to protect themselves. I also think it's really hard being on the front line working for an insurance company. You know, like it's hard for me to stay in a good mood when I'm having these conversations. Like I haven't been home in 4 months. Now you're not paying me what I'm supposed to. You know, you have people going through all sorts of things. So insurance companies they can sometimes struggle with the customer service aspect of things in a claim, I think. And they can be a little dehumanizing, trying to nickel and dime, right? Like you can say, hey, I lost a TV. It was 60 inches. And they'll say, well, was it really 60 or was it 58 inches? And me as a broker, I say, just get them a new TV. Like, come on, right? Like, what are we doing here? But when they're dealing with thousands of claims in a day, you know, maybe if you do overpay $10 in every claim, you go bankrupt. Like the margins are that tight. And I think sometimes they can be a little heartless, trying to save a penny, where again, it's nice to have a broker on your behalf come and be a human voice in these situations. In the insurance industry, there's two main channels to get a policy. I keep mentioning the broker channel, which is you go through a broker, and then I'll place you with a number of different companies that I'm partnered with. There's also companies out there that don't do that. They sell their own insurance policy. So there'll be an agent that works just for Allstate, let's say. I would always recommend the broker channel because as we've been talking about claims and things, you know, I do advocate for my clients in the event of a claim. If you don't have a broker, it would be like going to Amazon or calling your bank and being like, hey, how's my claim going? You could wait on hold for hours. There's no extra layer of defense in that, and there's no extra escalation you can go, right? Like they hold all the eggs in their basket. So I'll always be an advocate of the broker channel. I think we really earn our place in the system. In this case, we're not just salespeople. So I would like to, you know, just at least plug the system a little bit there for the brokers. No,
it's interesting. And then that leads me on to a different question around that, where you are a broker, you're working with certain insurance companies. Like, what's the setup for you, you know, loosely, not exactly financially? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. Brokers get all of their revenue based on a percentage of commission from the insurance companies. And again, people will see that and say, well, that's just, you know, can I save money by going around this channel? But it's not. Insurance companies who don't go through a broker channel or don't use brokers, their costs get absorbed by paying their staff, their frontline staff, their advertising costs, right? So financially for an insurer, it works out to be the same. But from a client perspective, you're getting our services for free. So the insurance policy at the end of the day stays the same. We're not charging our clients anything. We get all our revenue from the insurance companies. So why not have that extra person in your corner to advocate for you in a claim, to take care of your policy throughout it? And I mean, we're busy here all day taking care of our clients. And that's just purely extra service for our clients.
I think it's nice having that separate layer because, like, the argument could be, well, I could just pay the insurance company and they would have that person, but it's not really the same at all, is it? You kind of... having that extra independent third party, you're still financially benefiting from the insurance, but not really, because you're still selecting the right insurance for the person. So
yeah, that's so true. And I have a responsibility to the insurance companies I work with, but it's mostly to my clients. And if one insurance company is not a good fit or they're not treating my client well, I'll switch you.
Yeah.
It's easy, right? Like that's who I'm serving first and foremost. So yeah, that extra layer of protection is huge, and you don't get that if you go to a direct writer. And I've heard all kinds of horror stories, and when I do, I just think, thank goodness my job is safe.
With insurance, are you just serving Calgary customers, clients? Yeah.
Alberta wide.
Alberta.
Yeah.
So is there any difference between, say, insurance premiums for certain things in Calgary compared to Edmonton or whatever?
Definitely. Yeah, and again, the answer is always just the data and where the money goes. So insurance companies are really getting very good at adjusting rates and payouts based on postal codes, I'll say. So they're able to say, this neighborhood gets more hail, so rates will be higher in this neighborhood. Or there's more traffic accidents in the city center versus rural. So rural auto rates are much cheaper, actually, than being in the city.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, they're always looking to be more and more detailed about how they can, calculate premiums and offer discounts where they want it, or collect a premium where they have to, where there's going to be more losses. It's a huge thing of what they're doing.
No, I guess data has become more of a thing as well in the past decade or something.
Huge. Yeah, and I mean, we hear all about, data and social media companies are scraping our data for all this, but the insurance companies have been thirsty for it a lot longer, right? I had this funny thing, it was maybe 10 years ago now, and this company was saying, we're using AI to scrape data and try and find who those profitable clients are going to be.
Right.
And so they were looking at like receipts or something, and it was so bizarre. This big data AI ages ago found out that people who bought skim milk and diapers at the same time had really good credit.
Right.
And then through a different study, they found that people with really good credit have less insurance claims. Right. So, however insurance companies want to use this data, I don't really know. That's but hilarious. The fact that they were putting those connections together before, big data was ever a thing in our world just goes to show like that's where they're innovating in a lot of ways.
But just imagine like explaining that. I guess that's why it can be, you just to say, it's the data and stuff, but like imagine if you were saying to someone, your premium's higher because you buy cornflakes and whatever. And it's like,
something. What? Yeah, it could be a little discriminatory too, right? Or like, well, people hear it all, right? I mean, gender used to be a difference in premium, and that was only data. Yeah. But the data shows that it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. Right? All kinds of funny things like that. The color of your car used to be a thing. People used to say red cars get more speeding tickets. Yeah. And for a while there, the data did show that, and things evolved. So it's kind of cool to see the hard numbers side of things as well. Yeah. Versus what we perceive is going on in the world.
So when you were a kid, what kind of drove you a bit? You got into insurance, quite a while ago, but were you like interested in data? Like what drove you particularly to get to where you are?
When I was a kid and starting to, work my summer jobs and make a buck here and there, I always knew I wanted to work in some sort of capacity with people. And my only explanation was it would just keep it interesting. At least so I worked like cashier jobs, right? My first job ever was working at an amusement park, and you're just having fun with people all day. And insurance served that purpose. At the same time, I was taking an economics degree in school, so I did like the nuts and bolts side of things. I can be a little bit analytical. Okay. So it kind of fit both worlds. And coming out of economics, they're saying, well, you could work at a bank or some financial firm. And I didn't really like that. So I said, no, I want to keep working with people in the insurance industry. And I had a little bit of exposure to it already. And I said, I'm just going to give this a shot, jump in with both feet. And I have not had a reason to ever look back yet.
I wanted to really poke a little bit more on business management and less about insurance towards the end of this interview. And like you've got, is it about 9 people here? So I wondered, when you're being more of the boss, the manager, like how do you feel it's best to behave, act, and handle people to be successful in that role?
I mean, there's so many different ways you could take that. We just have a really clear mission and request of our staff, which is just to help people and solve problems. Okay. And, our staff are really good at that. It's not about profit maximization, nuts and bolts, super high efficiency. It's just if you're out there being friendly, being honest, helping people, that has served the business really well.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I'll sit back and I'll think, is there ways we can really step on the gas here? Are we being too lax? Do we need to be maybe just drive it home a little more here and there?
Yeah.
But the business model works really well. It makes a nice work environment. It makes it rewarding to work here when you're just helping people, and even those little wins, right? We've had some big successes, but sometimes we'll work all day to save somebody $5. And it doesn't make sense financially as business, but the karma is there. I think that's huge. We've grown this business entirely through referrals and word of mouth. We don't do any external advertising or anything, which is a testament to just how we work. So, even if sometimes you'll tell this strategy to like a business advisor and they'll roll their eyes, but it's proven to work, and it just makes for a nice office environment, I think.
I think it's important, especially when you're trying to be authentic in this industry. That probably adds a lot of value to your brand without being salesy, I think.
Of course, yeah. It's all people-to-people interactions. So we keep a good, uplifting environment here. I think that gets translated to our conversations with our clients. And again, it's not about making that sale or upselling this. It's just about providing the best service we can for people and doing what's in their best interest. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I'm overselling people on coverage, right? You do it right, you do it enough times, they start telling their friends, and we've got a really good reputation in the city. We've got a good reputation amongst our clients. We can feel good about it. Our staff are rewarded, and I just think it's a nice way to do business. Like I said at the start of this interview, when we provide the service correctly, honestly, in the best interest of our clients, it makes things really fun here.
Yeah, and you find the team gets fired up just from being that person to the clients?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll talk sales and we'll talk nuts and bolts here and there, but most of the conversation and the growth and the success that we're having and discussing as a team is those little wins. It's I was able to get this person the payment plan they wanted, or I was able to shuffle this around so they could get their bill paid before they go on vacation. Just those little service wins, most of all, is really what we celebrate here.
It sounds like you've got quite an empowered team. Do people come to you with ideas of suggestions of things to do differently, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of collaboration.
What kind of things have people come to you with that's kind of changed your perspective or been successful?
A lot of things, maybe like our internal systems, where we'll say like, instead of this, memo touching 3 people, could I just do it like this?
Yeah.
Let's do that, instead of this old binder we have with all our contact info, can I make a shared document with everything, right? And we're like, absolutely, please. So I think we have a nice open door policy. Everybody feels like they can contribute and come up with, these ideas and just create little efficiencies in the office. We like to have fun too. We'll throw, our lunches, birthday parties. We'll do events here and there, and people get fired up for that. We're talking what kind of like Christmas gifts we could do right now. Like we always do some sort of, jackets, gym bags, something. So it's kind of fun just to like throw out funny ideas for that right now too. Yeah.
That's sweet. Yeah, no, it's cool. Seems like a nice vibe.
I hope you feel it too. I mean, it's cool to have brick and mortar as well. I feel like that's kind of going away as well. But it is nice to have, the brick and mortar store really is the heart and soul of the business. We all meet here and then filter out throughout the day.
And we talked about this before we got started chatting when we were filming. But the return to office type stuff, I just wanted to kind of reflect on that with you and how you'd observed from your company and how that was working, but also others that you talk to. And do you have a sense of where that's at and where employees are at and where owners are at?
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure. I'll try and play both sides as a business owner here. I think to effectively run a team of people and to provide a service, you gain so much by having your team physically together. We've got an open concept here. Everybody has an office, but the walls are down a little bit, so you can hear, you can shout ideas back and forth. I've learned so much in my career just hearing somebody else on the phone and being like, oh, I really like how you described that. Or that was so nice how you talked to that person. And then you apply that. And I hear myself mirrored sometimes with the staff too. So there's a lot of intangible benefit you get from being in the same physical space.
That absorption is so critical, I think.
It's huge. Yeah. And managerially, it's easier too.
Yeah.
Right? You've got everybody here. It's easy just to shout out some ideas or like, how about this for lunch tomorrow? Now on the flip side, work from home is a luxury. I think there's huge benefits on a work-life balance, and I'm so big on that as well too. So I like it to be a privilege and something that's available to our staff. Yeah, I think there's a lot of power there. You know, people who are living in a good work-life balance will be happier, better, more productive employees, and that translates again to our clients. So I think it's in the best interest of our company to offer that. But at the same time, you can't go too far. You can't lose those intangible things you get from being in person and having that water cooler conversation, right?
Yeah, you definitely notice with people that maybe started jobs during the start of COVID or whatever, when that really kicked off a lot of this work from home stuff. And you do notice that they kind of, I think, aren't as far ahead probably compared to other people that had that exposure.
Yeah, I see that a lot, you know, even a little bit in our industry without pointing fingers. You know, you have some conversations that, you know, 10 years ago they would happen, you'd meet and you'd be able to be wearing suits and ties and this, and then that same conversation happened over COVID and there's kids crying in the background, there's the dog barking and this and that, and things become noticeably less productive, right? So having sensed that a little bit, doing business with other people and some of my clients too, it made me realize, you know, we have to keep some sort of cohesion at our business as well too. So I see the challenge both sides, but at the same time, technology has given us so much freedom and so much efficiency that we'd be silly not to take advantage of it. And yeah, it's nice to catch up on paperwork and have a load of laundry in at the same time, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's good for catching up on the errand type stuff.
Yeah, and there's efficiencies, right? I'm big on efficiency. So some things you can be getting done quickly at home. Some things you got to be at the office and just power through and be here for it.
Before we go, what's kind of next for you, Dan? Career-wise, what you want to do with the business, what you kind of seeing for you?
Yeah, I love that. I really love the industry. I love the broker channel. I love what we're doing here. I would love to really mimic the successful and enjoyable career that I've had in insurance. I want to provide that opportunity for all my staff here and grow it to other people as well. I think it's a rewarding career. I think it's got lots of opportunity. It allows you to put in as much effort as you want to get as far as you want to go, and it creates a nice lifestyle on the other side. So my big thing moving forward with the business is to provide those opportunities in a rewarding way to all my staff and continue the good service to our clients as well, because it does feel good when you nail it and you get it right.
So is there grand plans for Jones and Salt, or just kind of keep doing what you're doing and that's good enough?
We do want to grow. You know, I've got big plans. You know, if you're not growing, you're dying. But I'll admit to you and YouTube that I don't want to take over the world. You know, I don't want to be the Amazon of insurance. Yeah, I don't think that's good for anybody. So without compromising, you know, the homey family business style that we treat our clients and that we do things, I would just like to get the good word out there and offer a service to more people and good careers to more people as well.
Well, it sounds like there's opportunities and screaming for people. Do you find that's a limiting factor for growth as well, like finding people to fill the roles and things?
I hear it out there. We've been so blessed in being able to build a really awesome, robust team right now. And when it's time to grow, we've been able to find the right staff. But I do hear struggles out there in the insurance industry, company side, broker side. That's why my message is there's opportunity. It doesn't have to be a Jones and Salt. There's so many good employers and jobs out there. And you can climb the ladder pretty quick these days if you're motivated, dedicated, and willing to put some effort in.
What kind of people tend to do well in insurance?
People.
Okay.
Yeah, there's there's your data entry and there's clerical jobs like that too. So there's always that space for insurance. But I think the people that really rock it are the ones that will have good personable skills. You know, being able to have those hard conversations with people, being able to convert crazy insurance jargon into layman's terms in a comfortable conversation, I think is really valuable in the industry. And being able to work nicely with your insurance partners, your coworkers, people like that, I find have really successful careers and enjoy themselves more, because it is, at the end of the day, it can be quite a social industry as well.
I bet. Well, thanks so much, Dan. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. This was wonderful. I really enjoyed this.
No, me too. It's great to dig into insurance a bit more. I wasn't sure how this would go, but it's been enlightening and interesting, and just finding out a few things that I didn't know, and I'm sure others will find this interesting as well. So.
Cool. I'm so happy to share. Yeah.
So where is best to find you? Are you like active on LinkedIn and stuff like that? What's your kind of place for people to find you?
Yeah, no, I do have a LinkedIn. Best place to find me is at the office.
Okay.
So I'd love to have people drop in anytime. Website, jsinsure.com.
Yep.
My email's on there. I'm happy to connect, meet with other business owners, anybody who needs insurance. Yeah, I just love chatting insurance, obviously, and happy to have those conversations anywhere.
Great. Thanks so much, Dan. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. This has been an interesting episode to chat about insurance and find out another exciting kind of business world in Calgary. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.